Dispatchers play a vital role in our community, but in Sarpy County, officials are struggling to find enough people to answer those critical calls. 6 News' Johan Marin shows us how the shortage can impact their daily operations.
They're the first voice you hear when you call for help.
Okay, so where did the abuse take
911
place?
dispatchers answer dozens of emergency calls daily, but it's becoming a challenge to find enough people to do the job.
Our issue is that it's a 12-hour shift. It's 24/7. We do offer every other weekend is off, but we do find there are people that just don't want to work weekends.
William Muldoon is with Sarpy County's Emergency Communications. He says they currently have 37 dispatchers, and they need 5 more to be fully staffed.
We have to have somebody around the clock to answer the phone, around the clock to dispatch the first responders. And that can be difficult for finding new people.
Despite the shortage, those like Samantha Bacon don't mind doing different tasks every day, if it means to rescue lives.
I could be answering 911 and non-emergency calls. I could be dispatching fire and rescue personnel. I could be dispatching law personnel. I could be running the information channel.
Bacon works from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. each day.
You just have to make sure to always take care of yourself too, because not all of our calls are wonderful to hear.
The county is planning to open dispatcher applications starting next week. While Muldoon hopes to fill the shortage, he's also highlighting the need for bilingual 911 operators.
It certainly is a need that we want to fill when we have somebody non-English speaking calling into the center needing help. As
call centers here in the metro and across the nation navigate the worker shortage, Bacon is staying positive.
You're always learning. It's always changing. It's great when we get to help people.
On your side, I'm Johan Marin, 6 News.